thanks for tuning into the second episode of Things I Hear on the Misophonia Without Borders channel. I'm John, but you can call me Smooter, and I gotta tell you that it looks like a chunk of my mustache is missing. Must be the gray hair. I don't know, maybe my shave game was a little off this morning, but anyway, we're excited. If you don't get it from the title, then just trust me, this is going to be a really special episode, and we'll get into that. But first, I got to give a few disclaimers so I don't get into trouble. All right. I will do my best to not make any triggering noises or gestures, but since this show is about misophonia, specific triggers are going to come up sometimes. So for those of you who are triggered by descriptions of triggers or even the mere mention of them, we have safeguards in place. The first of which is for me to assure you that I will try to be as quick and non-detailed as I can when this happens. Even better, right before a trigger description happens, Doug is going to place this little trigger description alert sign over my head so that you know to mute me if you need to. And when the sign disappears, you can unmute me. And I hope you will. Shut up, Doug. Now, I'm not sure if I'll need to verbalize this in every episode, but it's important that I establish this next item as foundational to the show. I am not a doctor, therapist, or any other kind of medical expert or authority. I'm just a guy who has misophonia, and I'm here to talk about it. The Misophonia Without Borders channel, this show, and I do not make any claim to have a cure for misophonia, nor do we offer any type of medical treatment for misophonia or any other medical condition. Yeah, something happened. We didn't make claims like that in the first place either, but, well, I blame the AI bots, those Terminators in the Matrix. Hopefully this will keep them happy. Okay, so this episode was originally meant to be kind of a mini bonus episode that I was going to release just a few hours after episode 1 dropped. You may hear that mini bonus episode thing mentioned a few times, so I didn't want you to be confused by it. But we had such a good time with this, and it actually wound up being a bit longer than episode 1, but totally worth the watch. Now, there's some great info about some of the beginnings of misophonia discovery, and we talked about this awesome Misophonia Convention that we've got coming up here in November, as well as past conventions. So here goes, without further delay, the second episode of Things I Hear. Whew, finally. I've got a special guest. You can probably already see her. And for those of you who may not know who she is, let me tell you who she is. She is a rock star in the misophonia community. She's one of the people that discovered misophonia, and she is the president of the Misophonia Association. Her name is Dr. Marsha Johnson. Hello, Dr. Johnson. Good to see you.
Hi, John.
Does great work for us, and I'm glad that I could get her on, especially so early in the life of the program here. And just want to introduce her to you folks, especially the one that I was talking about, fairly directly in the last episode, who maybe just found out that you have misophonia, or that someone you loved has misophonia, and you're getting an idea of what it is still. She's a great person to learn from. She does a lot of work, a lot of advocacy, puts out a lot of information, puts together a great convention, which we're going to talk about later. But for starting off here, Dr. Johnson, can you tell us how you got into this whole misophonia thing? I mean, you're an audiologist. It was unexpected, right?
No, it was very strange. I opened a clinic in the summer of 1997 here in Portland, Oregon, and I had been training in tinnitus for the tinnitus retraining therapy program with Dr. Pavel Jastreboff. And I came home and I opened my clinic, and I used the name that he had in Maryland, but mine was the Oregon Tinnitus and Hyperacusis Treatment Clinic. So I was open, and at the time I was very active on the Hyperacusis Network and several tinnitus support groups on, Yahoo type groups. And the fact is, because I had that name Hyperacusis, way back in the 90s, when people came in with symptoms of misophonia, many different individuals, physicians, psychologists, they believed that they had hyperacusis. So I started getting referrals for young teenagers, 14 to 18, who had been diagnosed with hyperacusis. And I was, of course, very interested in this. Now, hyperacusis is a disorder where it's related to decibels and volume only. So softer sounds, moderate sounds, they're all fine. It's when it gets a little bit above, usually 50 to 70 decibels, people start to feel like it's too loud, like over amplified. It's a very specific condition. So these kids were coming to my clinic, and the first one I saw, I questioned, and I couldn't figure out what was wrong. The hearing was perfect. There was no complaints about loud sounds, and her father was there. They had driven down from British Columbia, and So I finally asked her, I said, what's going on? And she said, um, you know, look. And the dad put his hand up like he was going to bite his fingernails. And she jumped up and ran out of the clinic, sat outside on the curb crying. I really didn't know what to make of that. Okay. Audiology doesn't cover anything remotely like that. Okay.
Mhm.
So
Right.
I took note of all this and I didn't have a clue, but I did talk to her about when she did okay, because she had been dropped out of, she had to drop out of school, but she could go for cafeteria for lunch and she could go to band. And I was like, I thought you didn't like people chewing things. And I hate to mention triggers, I apologize, but it's in this story. And
Let me let
I
me
want,
let me caution you. You're not aware of this because I didn't forewarn you. Doug over here is going to take care of that in editing. A trigger alert is going to appear over our head. Actually, it says trigger description alert. So by
oh,
now, the audience has already seen it. So just
okay.
rest assured that Doug's going to be taking a look at the. Doug, put the magazine down. Jeez.
This story, it was my first introduction. That's why I have to mention it. I didn't know anything. So she said that she liked to see her friends, and there were so many kids in the cafeteria that it's very, very noisy. So I remembered in my mind that audiologists have this background sound called cafeteria noise. So I was able to put that in some units. I put the units on her and she wore them back up to Canada and she was able to return to school. So that was my first patient. I didn't know what it was. Then suddenly I saw a second one and then I saw a third one, and they were all like twins or triplets. They had identical symptoms, identical onset of this kinds of symptoms, the types of symptoms, perfect hearing, perfect grades, very smart kids. And but it's kind of disabling, crippling disorder that really destroyed their lives to a great degree. So this
Sure.
went on for a while and I started talking about it. And then eventually I ended up forming a Yahoo support group. I called it Selective Sound Sensitivity Syndrome. At one point in the early 2000s, early like 2001, or I had 5,000 people on there that had come together under soundsensitivitysyndrome.com on Yahoo. So that's the way this all started. And I figured out fairly quickly within the first few years that it wasn't an auditory disorder. It involved both visual, tactile, and other types of triggers. And yet the auditory ones did seem to dominate for the most part for most of the people. And their types of triggers were very specific and they had them very much in common. So this was an unusual thing and generally was striking children between the ages of 9 to 12. And so I started collecting a lot of data. At one point, I did a survey of over 900 subjects. And I'm not a research audiologist or a PhD, I'm a clinician, but I was trying to discover things about the population. And as I traveled around, I mentioned it at conventions and things I attended, and there was always somebody in the audience. And these people had something in common, all of them, John. They didn't know anybody else with misophonia generally. They were all by themselves in their families, feeling miserable, feeling inactive, sort of inadequate, kind of defective. They were mostly classified by their family physicians and people trying to help them as, they were mentally ill, they were emotionally ill. And this is a problem because misophonia is not a mental illness. It's a physiologic issue that has all these common factors across nations, ages, and nobody had really pulled all the pieces together. Then, briefly, in the mid 2000s and earlys, it had come to have this name misophonia because Jasterboff's friend had named it. So it means hatred of sound, which I've never liked, honestly, because people that have misophonia don't hate sound. They only hate certain sounds. So I kept on working and working and working, and I formed a network with other audiologists around the country because we were all being the first catchers of this population. So we were working away, and then Joyce Cohen heard about my work and wrote about me in the New York Times. And she put that article out in 2011. And at that point, the fact was, it took off like wildfire. Then I was all of a sudden on the Today Show, Good Morning America, the doctors, hundreds of radio programs. And I had formed up a good network of people across the country that were trying to work with this problem. And then just a little more, after this time period, I realized we needed to have a meeting. I wanted to get the people together so they could meet each other and we could work as a group. I'm a very big kind of grassroots Oregon hippie in a way. So I wanted to put together a meeting. So in 2013, I went and rented the first Methodist church downtown Portland. I had to pay $500 for the space for a weekend. And I had no idea if I could get that back. I didn't know. I put out the message across the different groups I was part of. And we hadn't formed the association yet. And John, 55 people came to Portland. And we would talk on the phone. A lot of really great families. Kitty Mars was there. Jillian Jaffe was there. Jill Meltzer came from Chicago. We had Tom Dozier come from California. And people were making me laugh because they said, Marsha, get the experts. And, there was no experts. I was the expert. Little audiologist in Oregon saying, I got 900 of these cases now. Does anybody want to help with this? What is this? And so we got together. We had the best time, even though we had some pretty terrible presentations.
Really?
Yeah. One guy came with his neurobiofeedback machine. He sat outside and smoked all weekend. And I don't think he had a clue what he was doing there. But we had some really good presentations too. And people just loved getting together. And it was so great. I could tell you some of the names, but I won't. But then we went on. Now we're going to have our 10th conference. I call them conventions. But we right after that, we formed the 501c3 and we created the Misophonia Association. And then that's a totally neutral organization. We're not espousing any method. We're not saying this is the solution. We don't say we have the key that unlocks the door. We're not telling you to do any particular method. We're the resource for the world in what is misophonia. Let me direct you to some research. Let's put on our annual wonderful patient convention. And we had one international researcher convention in 2018, but we want to provide education, advocacy, support, and research. We've given away research grants, and we don't take a position though. So there's lots of organizations that have formed to represent misophonia, but most of them have a position. Like they have a method they espouse, and we are not. We are neutral. We have relationships with similar organizations in other countries. And this year in November will be our 10th convention.
Looking forward to that. Uh-oh. Thought you fell over for a second there.
No, I know better than to take a drink, but
thank you for that.
I don't want to have a dry mouth when I talk.
Sure.
Anyway, I'm getting old and I'm looking forward to people to step forward and, help us keep going. I'm going to say that right now. I'm getting older. I'm going to be 70 before long. And it's time, Dr. Jaffe also, and Dr. Cindy Simon, and we need to make sure we keep an influx of, that was a terrible bee here, an influx of wonderful people coming in to help us. Like you.
Oh, gosh. Oh, I'm going to blush here. But, I remember when I first found out about misophonia, and I thought my wife and a friend of mine were playing a joke on me, to make a long story short. And by the time I was done reading this thing on my phone that it was sent to me through Facebook from them, my jaw was on the floor. And, when you find out something like that and realize you've had it most of your life, you start doing the research and stuff. And that's what I came across was the Misophonia Association. And my first priority was to get to that conference. And that was the year the conference got delayed by several months, but wound up being in my favorite getaway, Vegas, which I understand a lot of other people were afraid there might be some trigger noises there, but you had a great turnout. And for me, there's nothing in Vegas that's going to bother me that couldn't bother me in LA. I love Vegas. That's my getaway. So those of us
Seriously.
that did make it had a great time there, and I've been, I've gone to everyone since except for one because I had a conflict. But I mean, they're always great. I've haven't regretted going to any of them.
Well, we struggled a lot in the beginning with how to put together that first one in Portland. We spent more time on the menu than the speakers because we really wanted to reassure people if they came, that they could be comfortable, that we wouldn't allow even sipping water in the convention. And
Right.
we've kept it that way. We have a whole panel of people that work on snacks, and so far so good. Also now, the second year we went to Orlando because Dr. Cindy Simon had her clinic there. And we stayed at an Embassy Suites, and we found out that's the best place for us because they always have a huge water feature in their eating area. And then each room is 2 rooms. So there's a back bedroom and a front living room bedroom. So people who come to stay have 2 separate spaces to stay. It's just not a single room. And they're very affordable. So for that reason, we have always gone to Embassy Suites, except the one year we went to Las Vegas to Circus Circus. And that was fun.
It was for some
It
of
was
us,
it was a great conference. We've had up to
those of us that went.
250 people come. We've had about each time about half of the people are new and half the people have been before. So it's this year's theme. If we can talk a little about the convention, can we? Is that okay?
Please do.
So this kind of theme this year is come back home because we've had these years now on virtual with the COVID thing. And now we're saying, come on back and join us in Albuquerque. We've set it up for 100 to 150 people, and you can do virtual as well if you prefer. But we're hoping people will come together. We have the best panel. We actually ran out of room from people who want to talk now. Had to be very careful and figure out who can come this year, who can come in 24, who can come in 25, who can come in 26. When I started, there wasn't one research paper on misophonia or selective sound sensitivity or anything else you want to call it. There wasn't any. And now we have given out millions of dollars, dozens and dozens of researchers. And we like to have a convention now. Ours is going to be in Albuquerque on November 3rd, 4th, and 5th, I think. Is it 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 3, 4, 5?
It's
It's
two,
a
three, four, second, third, and
2,
fourth.
3, 4. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thursday night gathering, Friday and Saturday all day presentations. And what we do is we really mix it up. We have some led by people like Troy Reisdorf, who's a parent of a child with misophonia that's now grown up, and he will lead a parenting group again to discuss this. We have scientific people that come tell us their astounding, wonderful discoveries about what they've learned. We have uh, practitioners that provide you with information to use now. I mean, learning about research is great, but people come, they want to know what they can do today. So we have a mix of presenters of every sort. And then there's the best part, which is the informal gatherings,
Yeah.
which are amazing, which is where we have people that you can just sit with them somewhere in the lobby, in the bar. You can do all kinds of things and really have a great time and make some wonderful friends about what's going on in the field of misophonia. In any case, there's something for everybody, even the kids. I've seen attendees go and swim in the pool, go to the exercise room, go out for dinner somewhere in the nearby place. This is a great location right in the middle of the country. And within a mile, there's a historic New Albuquerque district. Um, it's fun. You can make it into a family thing. And we sure would love to have people come this year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great time, and I hope that we have a big worldwide presence online because I know not everybody can make it to Albuquerque, but you know what? I hope a lot of people make it to Albuquerque because I think it's going to be a great in-person event, and it's a great time to get to know other people that get it, that understand it. I mean, the first time I went there, I didn't know what to expect, and I wound up feeling like I had family by the time I left. And so
Yeah,
I'm
that's
still
really it. Yeah. So we hope people get a lot out of it. We do listen to you. We take really good evaluations after the event, and
yeah.
we read them and study them, and we amend the program for next year. And I don't know if anybody here watching has been before, but I do hope you'll think of it. If you're a student or you have difficulties, you can certainly talk to us about scholarships or financial aid. We don't want anybody not to come. We can just do that for the fee of the convention, but you would have to either stay somewhere or get a room. It's not, it's impossible to think if everybody in the world would come to something like this, there could be 1 million people in a space. There's a lot of people in the world that have misophonia.
Yeah. More than we know right now.
That's it.
Okay. Well, Dr. Johnson, or as I like to call her sometimes, Dr. J, thanks for coming on and sharing all this with us. Appreciate it. It was good to have you on. Hope to have you for a longer segment sometime down the road if this thing takes off and people keep watching it. So hopefully that'll happen. And
I would love to come back for any sort of thing. And I have 25 years of thousands of patients in here
wow.
and so much information. I really don't know what to do with it. So, love to share it. And I love what you're doing, John. Thank you. Keep it up. And it's wonderful to have you on the board of directors. I'm looking forward to a great future the next few years as we forge back into the post COVID era.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm proud of it, actually.
Yeah,
So
me too. Thank you then, and goodbye.
thank you.
Hmm.
And that, y'all, was the Dr. Marsha Johnson. So are you going to go to the convention? Hey, you might get to meet Doug there. I hope you can make it because there's going to be a lot of helpful info for you, and lots of great people who get it are going to be there. People just like you. And oh, yeah, don't forget, we've got that surprise celebrity guest. No, how many times I got to tell you it's not Chuck Norris? Silly Doug. If you can't go to New Mexico for the convention, you can still be there online because we have the technology. Links to the convention info and registration are in the video details below, as well as the links to the Misophonia Association website and a well-written article on Medical News Today, their website, the Medical News Today website, that gives a very clear introduction to misophonia. We hope you enjoyed the second episode of Things I Hear on the Misophonia Without Borders channel, and that you got something useful out of it. I'm still John, and you can still call me Smooter. Please hit the like button on this video, subscribe to the Misophonia Without Borders channel, and tell a friend so we can keep doing this to you for you. See ya.